In this episode, we covered the practical aspects of a technical role in a software industry career. Is it what the job description says, or is it more exciting, or not? Alice, welcome to No Coders Allowed.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining me for this episode. We have a fun episode today. We are going to make fun of some tech professionals. So today we're going to talk about the real day in the life of a tech professionals. And that title will make sense in a second. But before I go too far and get too excited, please tell everybody who you are.
Ellis Hampton. I'm a quality inspector working on rockets. Fun stuff.
Rockets, real rockets.
Yep, real rockets. Not the big ones like some of the big tech companies like like Blue Origin or what's the other one? It's Blue Origin and SpaceX. Not those big ones. Little itty bitty ones, small ones. They're going like satellites and stuff.
Pretty cool. I would have to pick your brain on that one day. I'd love to learn more about that. And I know you personally, and I also know that you are a connoisseur of fine whiskey.
Yes, I love a good. So, not really whiskey, is Scotch. It's a big difference.
Scotch. Ah, okay. What is the difference?
There's a big difference on where it's from and the region it comes from, which what kind determines its flavor. But today, sadly, I'm trying to keep it light, so I have my can of cider.
Very nice, very nice. I was hoping that you would bring along a nice fine glass of Scotch. So I have my own.
It's too early.
It's 2010 single malt apple juice. So it's
single malt apple juice. I like it.
I learned that from an old manager. He was awesome, and he's very cerebral. So he knew that he had to stand in front of people and exude a certain persona, right? The stylish James Bond, like cheers, but he doesn't like to drink. But he knew that persona worked for him. So what he does is when he gets to a event and he'll go to the Dwayne Reed or the whatever and get some apple juice, some rocks and he'll carry this around all night and drink. Obviously he won't let anybody go near it. And then they will know it's apple juice. But it worked. No, he looked very.
That's pretty clever.
It's pretty clever. Yeah, and so that is hilarious. So I promise that I'll explain why I call this episode "The Real Day in a Tech," the real day in the life of a tech professional, and I will kick off by showing you something, and that will make a lot of sense. So I'm going to share my browser with you. Now this is can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. So this is TikTok, and this is a content creator telling the world about her first day as a software engineer. I think she's in New York. That looks like a New York backdrop. So hopefully the sound is not too loud, but I'll go ahead and play this. And
at Google in the New York office, waking up for work will never not feel like a personal attack. The second my alarm goes off, I ask myself, maybe Iceland with a couple of sheep. Anyway, before heading out, I unbox the pixel I got for work. It's mostly for on-call and corporate stuff, which is great because I like keeping my work life separate from my actual life, despite not having one. I know day-in-the-life videos are hated because of oversaturating the market, so let's be clear. Don't come to tech for the free food. There are easier ways to make money, and they involve deep. Then I badged in.
So then she goes on
like about Google is that you
showing free food.
Building. Today I found a quiet spot by the where you want. I've seen people with two
and now fast forward,
which is fascinating. Like who hurts in the block, which is crazy. But I usually go to the same one because I'm a chill guy like that. But it involves tweaking models.
So fast forward a little bit more. You get the idea.
Always outlive the artist, and how an artist's stance is often their best marketing strategy. Then I ended the day with a special delivery. My nuclear hat.
Pause. So you get the idea here. It's obnoxious. And there are worse ones. I found a couple of them that are even worse. They give the impression that that's what you do in a tech role. You're working for a big tech company. You show up at 10, you go for your latte, you go for a 2-hour lunch, and then you go to the rooftop to enjoy the sun. And then you take a meeting, and then you go for your afternoon coffee. And people think that that's what tech does. Like they get paid a lot of money to do all that. And it's so unrealistic. It's for clicks, right? I mean, it's for views. People want views. And they do a disservice for those who are new to the industry or who already have a bad impression of tech jobs. Think that that's what you do, and it's cringy, but it's on TikTok. So the reason why I call this episode "The Real Day in the Life of a Tech Person, Tech Professional" is because I wanted to walk through what is it really like for a software engineer or a technical program manager or somebody who is in the technical role in a company, and what kind of activities fill your day. What do? Do you really go for that walk, in the park, and then try to put in 2 hours of work before you clock out? What does it really entail? And you may know some of this already, but it'd be fun to walk through it. That was the video. Super cringy. I would say that today it's a little different depending on whether you're working from home or remote. Obviously, if you're remote, you really don't have the facilities. But more and more companies are pulling folks back to the office. However, it doesn't mean that your company has that kind of facility, like a beanbag, and foosball and table tennis table, for you to play during lunch. Not every company will have that. Some companies are so small they don't even have an office. They book a few desks at WeWork. So it really depends. But for those bigger companies like Google or Facebook or Microsoft, it is true that there are places like that where you can chill out, hang out, have a good view of the city and things like that. But the average day of a tech professional is not like that at all. So I pull up some facts and some numbers to share with you. And obviously your day is highly dependent on whether you are an individual contributor, which means you are not a manager, or you are a manager on the management track. Are you in management by any chance, or are you an
individual contributor?
Fantastic. So for the individual contributor, for a software engineer, typically half of your time is coding, doing coding related work. A lot of engineers go into the field thinking that that's what I do. 90% of my day is coding. I code products, I code apps, I code websites. That's what I do. When in reality, if you're lucky, you get 50% of the time devoted to coding. And in that bracket of coding, you may not be coding what you like to code. You may be given some old legacy code or some other code that someone wrote that's broken, and now you got to open it up, take a look at it, fix it, understand it, fix the bugs. So it's not exactly, I'm going to go in, I'm going to create this wonderful app that no one has ever heard of, and everybody will fall in love with it, and there'll be 1 million downloads a day. Not all of that coding is pretty. Right. So 50% of it, I'm sure there are other numbers out there, but these are numbers that I found. 50%, if you are a software engineer, involves coding. Fine. The 30%, you want to make a guess what the 30% might be?
I want to say probably researching or in meetings. There's a lot of time wasted in meetings.
I'm glad you say wasted meeting. I have strong opinions about meetings. Yes, 30% of it is sucked up by endless meetings that is on a schedule. It's recurring, and the rest, the rest will be little things like researching, like you mentioned, writing documentation, responding to email, researching a topic. But those are little pieces. But the majority is your actual, what you're paid to do, the coding part, and then the second piece that is meetings. The meetings itself is, we won't go into the coding part, but we'll talk more about that later. The meeting part is interesting because there are various versions of meetings. Some are more useful than others. I remember when I was with a large company, we had a meeting. We had a weekly team meeting, and there was 20 of us. And in one particular meeting, this 1 hour meeting with 20 of us, we spent the entire hour. We were all researchers. We spent the entire hour talking about how should we set our Likert scale. A Likert scale is a numeric scale. 1 for very happy with the product, 5 for very unhappy. Likert scales are the numbers. So obviously, when you design a survey, you had to set the Likert scale, and the Likert scale could be even number, odd number. It could start at 0. It could end at 10. It could end at 20. Maybe it's 100. We spent 1 hour debating without any conclusion on Likert scale. And I left that meeting, and for the first time I thought, how much money did the company just blew through for us to talk about something that had zero impact on customer? We didn't make the product better. We just had some intellectual debate about numbers. So 20 times our salary times that 1 hour is a lot of time wasted, and unfortunately a lot of time is a lot of meetings I feel are unnecessary. But there are some that are necessary, some that are unnecessary. So I'll go through a few of these meetings. The one that most technical professionals will get to witness or to participate in is the one-on-one meetings. Your one-on-one could be one with a manager. Some managers are a little hands-off, and they may not meet you as frequently, or they meet you as and when they need to. Some would most would set a weekly schedule to meet with you. There may not be any agenda, and you may start a meeting by saying, "So how's it going?" And if you end up with a chatty manager, you may end up just talking about the weekend and the barbecue and go, "Oh, time's up. I got to go to another meeting. Hey, see you later, man." Then you hang up. Some are casual. Some feel like they need to check in with you to check on you. So expect those if you're walking into a tech role for the first time. Weekly one-on-one meetings. Sometimes it's with your manager. Sometimes it's with your skip manager, your manager's manager. Sometimes it could be with a peer that you work with very closely. Sometimes it could be with a mentor, but a mentor usually is someone sitting outside of an organization, guiding you through your career. So those are not as frequent. The mentors that I used to have, I would hit them up once a quarter, just to check in and hear how things are going and tell them how things are going, what help I may need, and things like that. Now, other than these one-on-ones, which will fill up 2 or 3 slots on your calendar, there are team level meetings. Some of the team meetings are related to the team itself, just like the team meeting that I had where we wasted an hour, or it could be project related. There's a project you guys are working on, there's a kickoff, there's a check-in, we need to make sure that everything is lining up. So there's a need to talk. Fine, those are crucial to have that communication, especially if you have a team with folks scattered all over the world. You have to talk. Now the team meetings it's very common for teams to have team stand-ups. Sometimes they may call it Scrum, right? In the morning they may do a stand-up. Supposedly it's literally you have to stand up and you go around the room and go, "What are you working on? What did you do yesterday? What are you blocked on?" So they go through this ritual updating everybody what you are doing. I'm quite sure in your organization they will have a version of that. I'm not sure if you guys do it daily. Do you have daily stand-ups?
No, well, it depends. Depends on if we're getting close to delivery, depending on if there's a risk in production, we'll have stand-ups. I have a question though for you though you use the word Scrum, right? Is that typically practiced with coders or with software engineers?
Good question. My current company doesn't use it. I have worked with another company, and they used it religiously, and they even have post-mortem like meetings after the delivery is done. They have retros, and they're very religious about it. My current team doesn't use it, but we do have weekly meetings where we make sure that everybody's unblocked. What are we working on? So that's quite common. Yep.
And I know I know in working as an inspector, we don't use that type of wording. We usually use things like Gemba, things in other wording. I can't get the wording out. Like 5S and things like that, where we want to make sure that we're not like creating waste and wasting time. And I know that I've gone into meetings and you're sitting there like,
what is 5S?
5S is a Japanese terminology for, and I believe it stands for set, sort, shine, standardize, and I believe it's like straighten. I'm not quite sure what the last S, and that just literally everything has its place, so you don't waste. So, and I practicing that, when you walk into like a work cell or something like that, all the tools are right there. They're like, you may see like a toolbox, in a garage, where you have like cutouts of the tool that goes there, so that if the tool's missing, like, wait, that tool's missing because it's not in a slot. Things in that nature.
Interesting. I gotta look that up. That's very interesting.
But I know that in that's like a manufacturing terminology, right? They use it. It was it's a guy, I forget the guy's name, but I know it's a Japanese terminology it's been adapted worldwide. It's a quality. We use it heavily in quality, and it's something you have to do. Everyone's responsible for it on the manufacturing floor. That's why I was asking like Scrum, because I know Scrum is like schedule oriented.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Delivery. Yep. Keeping everybody honest and working. Yep. Yeah. By the way, I admire your industry a lot in terms of delivery and execution. I watched the documentary on the James Webb Telescope, and they walked through how precarious everything is leading up to the launch of the space of the telescope. And they talked about a concept that I heard for the first time, and they call it single point failures, SPF.
Yep.
And I was like so enthralled by like, oh my God, that is so cool. Right? And I think for that particular project to launch that big ass satellite telescope into space, there was like over 300 single point failure. And if one fails, everything falls apart. And then as they are launching, prepping, and up to the point of launch, and they have a checklist of the single point failures that have passed, or whatever the word is, right? So they now know, all right, we're down to 200 single SPF. All right, now we're down to 10, and we're down to 2, and ta-da, yay! It's up in space, right? Because that James Webb Telescope is packaged up and all folded up like origami, packed into the rocket. It goes up, and then there are various stages. And then when the telescope is up there, it has to deploy its forgot what they call it, like a shield, and the mirrors. They have to deploy all the mirrors, and so every single SPF is accounted for. And I thought, man, that is real engineering. I mean, when you put a rocket in space, I can imagine the discipline and the attention to detail and being damn sure that everything will fall in line for a successful launch. So I'm very fascinated by that space.
We use a single point of failure is also used in automotive. So there's a terminology. I may be going off on a tangent here. You heard of FIFO, and it's first FIFO, and which stands for first in, first out.
Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm.
And then the other one, I forget the other terminology, meaning it's last in or something like that. First out.
First out. Yeah.
So, and then there's another one. It's I forget the acronym, but it typically means as needed. So meaning, instead of over ordering product, you vet your supplier, you get them onboarded, and what happens is like you do your due diligence in ensuring that the product you're going to receive it's going to fit, it's going to work, and it's going to meet longevity requirements, safety requirements. And then all you got to do is just plug and play. You install it, it should work. And that's like single point of failure. If it doesn't work, you know exactly where you got the material from, who's responsible.
Yeah, fascinating.
A lot of that goes into like satellites as well. You have all these different manufacturers who's producing all these critical components, and it's like they got to work. And if they don't work when we get them, then
things don't fly. Yeah, very, very cool. I gotta sit down and talk to you more about the building of rockets, how to get them up there.
I don't know too much about rockets. Just but
the discipline.
I'm an electrical person, so.
All right, so so what we're talking about? We're talking about daily stand-ups and exchanging information, making sure that the engine keeps running. Right. There's also not once in a while. On a periodic basis, there's also sprint plannings. So in the software engineering world, a sprint is typically defined as 2 weeks worth of coding. And if something needs more time, then you take two sprints to do it. And the software engineers quantify how much work is involved. And so those happen during sprint planning and meetings. So that happens once in a while. So that would take up the rest of it, a bit of a calendar. It is a burst of activity, though. It doesn't spread out throughout the year. It's just this month, at end of the month, end of the quarter, we have to plan for the next quarter. So that week will look incredibly busy because you're going from one review to another, to one planning to another. So that is when your calendar gets really colorful. There's no time to go get a latte and go walk around and go to the sleeping pod or whatever.
So how many sprints do typically a software engineer face in a year?
Good question. In a year, I'm not sure if anybody ever counted it, but assuming that they work all around the clock, they like to measure things in at least from what I've seen in quarters. So in one shot, they know this quarter, my team of 5 will burn up this many cycles because there's only that many of us. And this is our bandwidth, and are we at capacity 100%? Are we like severely understaffed? So usually it's over the brim kind of a situation because there's no downtime. I've never come across a software engineer who's like, I got nothing to do. You guys want to give me something? Never. It's almost always too many things they have to do. So the view that they have a lot of spare time is quite unrealistic. It could be that some roles may have a bit more flexibility, but the software engineers tend to get super slammed. Others, people who have technical technical roles may have a bit more leeway and a more relaxed schedule. And other than sprint planning, there are things like backlog grooming, where they look at, hey, we started this train. How are we doing? Is anything falling behind? Do we need to adjust any t-shirt sizing exercise and things like that? So, do you guys use the word t-shirt sizing?
Never heard of that.
Okay, so a t-shirt size is a estimate, thumb in the air estimate of how much effort a project would take. So if you say the t-shirt size is small, that means it's probably you can do it in a couple of days. If it's a large t-shirt size, then there's going to require more discussion because you're going to need more people and more resources. So t-shirt sizing is a common exercise that they I'll take about, we need 2 sprints. I need 4 engineers. So kind of a t-shirt size effort. So size is a estimation of effort. And then there are demos and show and tells. Like once in a while, you may have to put something together to show the executive or to show another team, to introduce them to a new way of doing things. So that will fill up a lot of your team level calendar, team level activities on your calendar. Invariably, you have to work with another group. So in our world, they split groups into typically by function. So there's a group of engineers and technical folks who do authentication, security. Another group will do front end and UI. Another group will do data. So these teams are together building one product. So they have to exchange notes. So frequently there are meetings where you have to present what's on your side, because they are waiting for you to use your piece to get things done. So your day can be filled up with a lot of cross-team collaboration and meetings like that. There are also fire drills. First time I heard that word, I thought it was an actual fire drill, like at school fire drill. You get out of the building, you gather under a particular lamppost. Fire drills are emergencies in a way, like something that is really important and you have to drop everything to go take care of it. So there are always fire drills. Some fire drills are more serious than others. Some fire drills are things like, oh, our CEO is going to go meet with blah, blah, blah. We need you to put this demo together. All hands on deck. Everybody stop what they're doing and make sure this happens by midnight tonight.
We on the manufacturing floor, we call that, hey, this is hot, like real hot. You need to
hot.
I
like that.
This. So you need to address this now. Hot, urgent, hot.
I like that. They both have a temperature component to it. Interesting. This is hot. I like that much better than fire drill. The other fire drill is incidents, security breaches. Something happened and they're like, somebody's been hacking and we just discovered that as a anomaly in the data, in the logs. So that can constitute a fire drill. And then there are moments where you have to look at each other's code. If an engineer codes out something, he doesn't just go in and just merge it and deploy it to the world. It goes through a series and a system of checks. Typically, maybe a peer or an engineer, a manager, or would take a look at the work, make some comments. If it's serious, they may have to send it back for the developer to correct. So then you play that role too. You review other people's code and try to give some feedback. So that's very common that's a very common activity that takes up the time of at least a developer, a programmer. So I do some code review, but because I'm not paid to be a engineer, I don't comment at the level of code. Like, why did you code it this way? Why don't you code it the other way? If you code it this way, there'll be a limitation and a security issue. I leave that for the professionals. But what I do get involved is when their product ends up facing the customer, being used by an end user, then I have to participate and go, hey, when you did that, that means that our user won't see this. This could be problematic. So can we try? So I review their code that way. Yep. I'm sure in your world they have checks and systems and procedures, the SOPs that checks each other's work. Right.
Yeah, check and balance. A lot of it's manual, sadly.
Mm.
The whole rest thing be automated, but it's a lot of like verify this, verify that. I was going to ask. So back to what you were saying, like when someone write code, do you guys use like I want to say like sandboxes so that you can test the code out?
Yeah, almost always. There's always a development environment. An environment is that thing that you're describing, a sandbox. So there's no harm done. There's no real data. You're just playing around, just kicking the tires. So there's almost always a development environment, and you develop what you're developing on. And in our world, you work off a repo. You work off a source code. So there's a place where all the code lives. But not only that, the code has many versions of it, so that you don't mess up the real one. So if I have, for example, if we have an iPhone app out, so the code for the iPhone app is here, and you decide that, hey, we want to create a Android app, so you would work off another branch that is the Android branch, and maybe there are things that they share, so you can have a branch that will sort of feed them. And if anybody else is working on newer iOS feature, they will likely create a branch from the main branch, work on it, and then check it back into the mainstream again, obviously through reviews, and they call it a pull request. So that is very, very common. Yep. And it allows a way for you to protect the code if something goes wrong, because you may need to reverse. You may need to reverse a change.
So I guess one of my biggest questions, and I hope you can answer this, it's like on the day-to-day, how much code do a typical engineer create, or software engineer create?
I don't know the answer to that, because it depends on what you're coding. Some simple things require many lines of code. Some sophisticated thing can be done in a couple of lines of code because they are good helper files, the libraries. For example, if I have an app that needs to take a picture and crop the picture, if I don't have any help in cropping the picture, any code that crops a picture, I have to go code up the logic to crop the picture. Oh, X, Y, is it square? Do I lock in the scale? Right? There's a lot of questions and a lot of logic I need to code. However, in the real world, people use libraries, they use helper, code that has already been written, and all you have to do is just use it. And then that could save me a lot of time and save me a lot of code. So instead of writing this 500 lines worth of code to go crop a profile pic, I'll just use a library that tells me image dot crop, crop 100 pixels by 200 pixels, done. So it really depends on that. One thing that they do count is commits. Commits are changes that you have worked on and committed back into the mothership. And in some organization, unfortunately, they count the number of commits an engineer would perform as a measure of performance and activity, whether it's fair or not, because every commit could be humongous or could be really small. So they don't quantify the big and the small, they just count how many commits you got. So how many lines of code? I do not know. Good, very good question. It really depends.
I know that brings up another question a bit, because I know with today's technology, and do you think that ChatGPT and other platforms like that would help out?
100%. It's no longer, if it was valid to check the number of lines of code from an engineer in the past, it's no longer valid today. today, so we're using this platform here called Rendezvous, and I've been the main developer of this app. If you look at the code powering Rendezvous, you see hundreds and thousands of lines of code, but I may not have necessarily written every single line. Because what I do these days is what they call vibe coding. Have you ever heard that term? Vibe coding is a term that's popularized easily as recently as 2-3 months ago. And what it is using ChatGPT or AI of some sort to help you code. So what I do is I would do something like, I would like a emoji thing to pop up at the top of my head when you detect that I'm smiling, right? So I could go off and code them for 2 weeks, or I can go to ChatGPT and say, give me in the language that was built, this is built in, give me a widget that will show a emoji dependent on whether I'm smiling or not. And ChatGPT will go, and what I'll do is I'll copy and I'll paste into my code and I'll test it. If it works, ta-da! All of a sudden I just added 500 lines of code that I didn't write that worked perfectly.
Now, do you see that being like part of a day-to-day thing for like brand new software engineers coming into the business?
100%, almost a requirement. If you are a software engineer out there that's resisting using AI to help you code, you are going to lose out pretty quick, because your peer who is using ChatGPT and other platforms to help them code is going to be delivering a lot faster, cleaner, better code than you are. Mm-hmm. The most popular one that I heard of is, ChatGPT is one, I use it. GitHub Copilot is another one that helps you code. The one that's even more popular, I believe, these days is really skyrocketing, something called Cursor. And all these AI assistants, or they have access to your code. So in a way, they can anticipate what you may be asking for. So if you create a text box for first name, the AI will know you likely ask for the last name. The next one will be the last name. The next one could be your email. So as you're typing, it's suggesting like, click, 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 click. And you go, oh yeah, I want that. Apply, and all your code is done. Your first name box, the last name box, the email box is all done for you.
So ChatGPT and things like that,
yeah,
that's awesome, because you can remove the middleman.
Yeah, it's AI is changing the world. And back to your question about whether it will impact the junior folks coming in. Yes, 100%. I think it's a disservice for any company to hire a software engineer today and not insist on them learning how to use AI to help them code, because it can 5x your productivity. Why not? Right? For the same amount of money, you can have your developer crank out code, better code, sometimes more code, better code, more accurate code. So 100%. So, but that doesn't get you off the hook. Doesn't mean that in the past, when the developer's calendar is filled with 50% of coding, with AI now it's only taking 10%. That will never happen. There's a thing called Parkinson's law. And that is, any time you free up will be filled up with more shit to do. So now in that 50% bucket, you'll be cranking out 5x worth of work. That will be the expectation. So yeah, times have changed. Times have changed indeed. So what else we got here? So there are meetings once in a while where everybody's scrambling to put together material for business reviews. That's quite common. It's almost like a review of the quarter. Sometimes they call it QBR, quarterly business review, where we talk about things that we have done, our progress, what we need to work on. So those tend to be a burst as well, leading up to the day when they have to put together this 50-slide PowerPoint to present to VP so and so or CEO or the CFO. So those can be quite randomizing, because here you are working on a code, you are under tight deadline, and CEO wants us to work on that deck, and everybody's is all hands on deck, which means you stop your work, do this, then go back to work. So it's not the so that's very common. There are also some company-wide meetings that will, for most tech companies that I've joined and that I know of, there's always a cadence of meetings that's held across the entire company. So everybody hops on a Zoom call, and these are, we like to call them all hands. All hands meaning all hands on deck, or they may call it company meeting, whatever they may call it. But pretty much everybody attends. No matter what function you are technical, you're not technical, you're in marketing, you're a designer, you're a writer, you're sales, everybody attends the call. And those tend to suck up the time of those people preparing for those more than the rest of us. 90% of us, 95% of us go about our work. And then that 5% will be scrambling to put together the deck because the CEO wants to talk about our future plan for the next fiscal year. So all hands are quite common. And obviously there are, not obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, there are some events that are not work related that may take up some of your calendar space. They don't happen a lot. They may happen once a year, twice a year, and they are morale events. In the tech industry, it's very common for companies who can afford it to have morale events. And that morale event could be a team level, maybe just the 20 of you, maybe the 5 of you. It could be at a divisional level or a company level. And some companies that are much further along, like the Google and the Facebook and the Microsoft, Amazon, they tend to have pretty nice offsites. They bring them out to somewhere. Sometimes it's the city, and they all fly into Vegas, they all fly into Louisiana, the New Orleans, they fly into Florida, and they will book up some hotel for 3-4 days and they may spend 20% of that time talking about work. Like, hey, this is what we're going to do next year. And next up, we have the VP of marketing talk about our new marketing strategy. And they may take up a day to do that, but the rest of the time typically is for morale. And when I was at Microsoft, they would have these lavish offsite where they would have 10, 20,000 people showing up at Vegas, and they would do not only like food and dancing, and sometimes they would secure some performance like Lady Gaga or whatever. So it's the real party, if you will. And the salespeople love it. The salespeople love it partly because they are always out in the field and they don't get a reunion to meet each other, and so they look forward to it. They get drunk and they get happy during these offsites. And the engineers love it too. From my little own survey, I know the engineers love offsite because it breaks them out of their routine. They get to fly to a city and get to meet their colleague and party and drink and eat food, dine at nice restaurants. And so I look forward to that too, so long as it's not taking up too much of the week. I was in a role at Microsoft once, and my role was somewhat in sales. And at Microsoft, I'm not sure if they still have it today, there's something called MGX. And MGX is Microsoft sales meeting. And those meetings are typically in a pretty nice city. And I went to the one in Vegas. There was about 20 to 30,000 of us, all flew in, took up a bunch of hotels. And then, at that time it was Steve Ballmer, and at the time is Satya would go up and give a talk, and then all his divisional, leaders will come give a talk, and But other than that, everybody's waiting for like, dinner, because it's almost always we'll break into teams to go eat at some fine, nice restaurant. So that's always nice. Obviously, if your company can afford it, if you are like a struggling startup, you'd be lucky if you get a lunchbox. So, but pro and cons. The con is I felt that when I was new at Microsoft, I loved the traveling. And when my manager tells me, "Hey guys, next week we are going to Silicon Valley, right? Get ready. We'll be there for 3 days." I love it because we travel on company's dime. We eat out. We had a grand old time. And you go on a Monday night, and then you spend Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday you fly back. And it was fun to me. I saw it as a perk. But when I became a father, that was when things changed. That was when I hated offsites. That's when I hated going to these big company-wide meetings in another city. And I'm there, and I only have patience for like 2 days. Beyond the second day, I'm like, what am I doing here? Can I find an excuse to go back? Can I get violently ill? And can I just go back? Can you just cancel the meeting and let me go home because I got my kids at home? So a friend of mine, every time we do these offsites, she has to go find a babysitter because she's a very young baby at home, and she needs to find a person who can stay the night to watch. I think she was single parenting, to watch her kid. So it's like $150 a night, to babysit the kid. So she hated offsites. She hated company meetings that take her out of town. I don't blame her. So the day of a average tech professional is colorful, and it's colorful with things that are unexpected, things that you don't like but you have to do. There are very few things that are in your control, where you say every Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, I want my 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock to be heads down working. Sometimes it works. You can block up your calendar, but more often than not, you get randomized, you get put into a meeting, you get to put out a fire, you're told that something is really important, that there's a security breach, there's an incident. So the pace is quite chaotic. It's not as mellifluous and walk in the park and go get my latte and then, ooh, look at the scrambled eggs I got with garnish. It's rare, very rare that you see something like that. And I'm sure post-pandemic, it's even more true. Pre-pandemic, maybe. There was a point in time when some of these tech companies were hiring really top engineers not because they want their brains to work on something interesting. They hire them so that the competitor cannot hire them. So the Facebook was known for that. They would pay a lot of money to hire these engineers, and then they would just give them like, go do some blue sky project, whatever you want to do, because they don't want Google to hire them to go work on something that will end up competing with them. So a lot of these guys may indeed have an incredibly relaxed, loose day, on the calendar. But for the 99.9% of us, it's a lot of work. So I hope that gave you, well, I'm sure you had a more realistic and grounded understanding of a tech professional. But I hope people who are watching will get a better understanding of how a calendar of a tech professional looks like. So I like to end my show with a signature segment called 3 myths, 3 facts, 2 myths, and 1 opinion. So I'd love to walk you through them if you're ready. Sure. Awesome. So fact number 1, let me just do this real quick. Three facts. Fact number 1 is Junior engineers, and you can replace the word engineer with any other word. Junior engineers often get pigeonholed into very narrow scoped projects and very low impact tasks. And that's by design. It's just the way it is. It's not like they dislike you. Is that you have to get into the familiarity of the project you're working on. So no point getting upset. You will be given a task, a project, some feature that's not exactly the most sexy thing for the company. And that is to be expected. That's fact number one. I've never heard of a junior engineer coming into a company and given like some big shiny project that the CEO is dying for. Almost never happens. Fact number two, most of the engineer's time is spent not coding. So 50% is a high ceiling, but the rest of the time is spent with a lot of other stuff that we talked about, the fire drills, the meaningless meetings, a lot of that. So there's nothing wrong. It's just the way things are structured, the nature of your job that requires you to talk to people, to write something up, to investigate something, to research something. That's pretty common. Fact number three is ambiguity is part of the job. Engineers, by definition, prefer predictability. This is my problem space. These are my tools. If I put them together, it will solve everything. Everything's black and white. There's no gray area in software engineering. Engineers love things to be absolute, predictable, right? And ambiguity scares them. When things are fluctuating and things are like, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, it scares them. But unfortunately, ambiguity fills up your day and fills up your calendar and fills up your duties. So that cannot be avoided. So that's fact number three. Close. Myths. Two myths. The first myth is specialists make more money. So specialists would be folks who have specialty in a particular field, like AI or data or SEO or something. Not always. There are generalists who are well paid as well, because they are able to solve a lot more problems. So in terms of a real world scenario where you have two engineers and one is a specialist, one is a generalist, it doesn't mean one is busier over the other. It doesn't mean that one makes more money than the other. So because there are engineers who want to walk into a field and be able to say, I am joining this company because I am an expert in the field of blah, blah, blah. So my time is more precious and golden than someone else's time. So that is not true at all. The second myth is the savior mentality. I will change the world. I will save the world. I have been hired into this role to change and make this product perfect. So that mentality of walking in as a savior hurts you when you are new in a company, and because you're plunged into this world, looking at a calendar like how we describe, with meetings and fire drills and code reviews and daily stand-ups. But then you remember when the recruiter was offering me the job, and when I looked at the job description, it says if I want to change the world, to be on the forefront of AI, and I thought I was hired to do all that. But now you're telling me that I have to look at some old code that someone else wrote. My time is more precious than that. I'm more expensive than that. And unfortunately, that is the wrong mentality to insert yourself into a new role.